Hi, I'm Rhonda Dean Kinsel, and I'm the Associate Dean for Students at the University of Oklahoma, where I oversee academic advising and student engagement for the College of Arts and Sciences. I also have a master's degree and a PhD from OU in composition, rhetoric, and literacy. Most of my academic life has been focused on writing. I taught first year composition on our campus while I was working on my master's and my PhD. And then after I became Associate Dean, I returned to the classroom to teach composition, both online and in a traditional classroom. And I've recently taught our Writing for the Medical Professions course. My other role at OU in the writing world was as an assistant director in the OU Writing Center. And it was really there that I first encountered writing groups and witnessed their power firsthand. I worked in the OU Writing Center from 2006 to 2009 while I was writing my doctoral dissertation. And during my last year of that work, I was a member of a dissertation support group. We met once a week for the entire academic year. I will never forget it, every Friday morning. There were 5 of us in that group, and all of us were working on either dissertations or theses for our graduate degrees. I began my dissertation in August of 2008 and finished and defended it in May of 2009. And I know that that significant progress was due to my writing group. They shared the same issues that I had, right? And the same struggles I was experiencing. They held me accountable for my work every week and gave me really good feedback on all of those multiple drafts I was writing. They were just very encouraging. And I was able to be and do the same things for them. So I now have a wonderful new role with NACADA as the coordinator of writing support. And in that role, I want to talk to you a little bit today about giving and receiving feedback in writing groups. So we're basically going to cover 4 things in this session: the need for writing groups, practicing hospitality, giving feedback, and receiving feedback. So let's get right to it with the need for writing groups. One of the main reasons for writing in groups is to do away with this myth of genius that I think still persists about writing. It's this idea that if you're a really good writer, you can sit alone in an attic room and just pour forth pages of content on any given day. And if you believe in this myth, and yet you struggle to come up with an idea or to write a really good page of text, you can get really frustrated and eventually you may even stop writing. Now, one of the things I learned during my dissertation writing also impacts the need for writing groups, and that is this need to fight that isolation that we sometimes experience as writers. I found myself in that process sitting at home alone, just looking at that flashing cursor on the computer screen and really struggling to begin. I felt I really didn't know enough or that I was very unprepared to write that 200-page document. I was just overwhelmed. Good writing happens in good community, where you find generous colleagues who are willing to sit with you and hear your words while you listen to theirs, where you all can work together to create accountability and benchmarks that will provide a good path forward for your work. And that brings me to one of the most important reasons for a writing group: your development as an academic advisor. Good writing follows good thinking, and good thinking depends on good writing. As you reflect on your work and you develop ideas around it, you develop yourself as a professional. You begin to research and dig deeper into the concepts of our work, the theories that form our practice, and the impacts that we have on students. You also begin to hear the work of others and you begin to integrate it with your work. So this communal and very synergistic process begins to make you a better and more engaged professional. So now that we've kind of talked about what the needs are, like what precipitates writing groups, let's talk about practicing hospitality within your writing group. Supporting a colleague in a writing group requires a good deal of time and attention. By giving attention to another colleague's work, you're really practicing hospitality. You're opening yourself to their ideas and their words and their voices. I mean, what kind of a gift is that to a person? A writing group is also the perfect place to practice reciprocity. You give generously of your time and attention, and then someone else returns that generous gift to you as they read and comment on your work. This work can be incredibly meaningful, and it really can create a living learning community if some essential guidelines are followed in the process. So let's talk about giving and receiving feedback in a writing group. So first, giving feedback. When you join a writing group, you agree to be a peer reviewer. First and foremost, you are a colleague and a peer of the other members of your group. You're not in any particular position of authority, and you are not the arbiter of all grammar correctness, okay? Taking on those latter roles, you know, kind of resident expert, that's a surefire way of destroying the camaraderie and collegiality of a writing group. No one needs to set themselves up as the resident expert. You're one voice among many for this writer, this friend and colleague who has asked for your support and feedback. Take your role seriously, but remember you're reviewing the writer's work, not their experience. Their experience is always valid. You can discuss how they've presented it in writing, but that experience is theirs and it is valid. Ask the writer for the context or the parameters of their work and what type of feedback she would like to receive. Is this work something they're submitting for a publication? Is it an outline? Is it a research proposal? Before you can provide feedback on the draft, you really need to know its purpose and what it is designed to fulfill. In addition, you want to allow the writer to determine the type of feedback you provide. If the writer doesn't want feedback on their grammar, then don't provide feedback on their grammar. Focus on the specific types of feedback that writer requests. Keep your comments and your feedback focused on the writing and whether or not it meets the expectations and context that the writer has described. Don't critique that experience itself. Don't get personal with comments about the writer. Let me give you an example. If your colleague's draft contains introductory material that you kind of find superfluous or, you know, just kind of unnecessary, you could remark that her introduction sounds like it was written by an 8th grader. Or you could provide specific feedback about the material in the introduction that seems that it doesn't provide context or support the thesis. The former, you know, saying it sounds like an 8th grader is a personal attack or a personal criticism. The latter is specific feedback on the writing. So your feedback should always be the latter. I also want to say that I always begin any feedback with what I thought worked in the draft, right? You've heard this before, and I think it's true that you should always start with the positive. What was done well? What met the guidelines and purpose that the writer had provided? When you get into the specifics of what didn't work for you, remember to keep your comments subjective. Don't say this paragraph is bad. Tell the writer specifically why you were confused or didn't understand or follow the particular paragraph, why it didn't work for you. And if you can't come up with a reason why, then don't make a comment like that, okay? But don't generalize about something being good or bad. Be specific. Now let's talk a little bit about the receiving end of feedback in a writing group. First of all, you want to give good context about the purpose of the writing you're submitting and asking feedback for. So give the details, how this piece is going to be used, where you plan to submit it, how you plan to use it. The better the context and description and purpose you provide, the better the feedback will be. Tell the reviewers where you need help. If you're struggling in a particular part of the paper, clearly define that. Ask for exactly what you need from your readers and reviewers. Now, this next one's a little bit more difficult. Be vulnerable. I know sharing your writing with others is a very intimate process. You may feel like you're exposing yourself because, in fact, you are, right? You're putting yourself out there by sharing your writing with someone else. But realize there's no progress in your work without that kind of vulnerability. In order to write for an audience, you have to know your audience and how your writing is being perceived by them. This process, while incredibly intimidating at times, is also immensely rewarding, and it can make your writing that much better and more appropriate. Now, don't feel like you have to incorporate all the feedback that you receive, right? Particularly if a piece of feedback you receive doesn't resonate with you, don't feel like, well, I've got to do it because this person said I have to. No, you don't. It's still your work, and if the feedback you receive you feel isn't valid, then don't use it. Don't incorporate it. On the other hand, don't short circuit your improvement by ignoring everyone's advice because you're super sensitive about your work. Don't get defensive. You may feel that the feedback is not appropriate or not what you need. Well, then simply file it away. Don't get overly protective of the work to the point that you combat every piece of feedback with a defense, right? Remember, each person's feedback will be subjective, so get lots of opinions and ideas. The more readers and reviewers you have, the better chance you have of reaching a broad audience with the work. Particularly if you see several reviewers, though, finding the same weakness, or if several reviewers note one portion of your work isn't particularly understandable or resonant, you can count on that feedback because now you've received it from more than one person. Ask good follow-up questions to direct the reviewer to more specificity. So if the feedback's general or there's a comment you don't understand, ask for more details or clarification. Often a good follow-up question can lead the reviewer to give you even more specific feedback that you'll find even more helpful. And most importantly, perhaps, remember your writing is not you. It's your work. But you have another identity outside of this writing. So don't conflate the work with your identity. You're a strong professional, you're a good professional, you do good work, but you also have a lot to learn, right? So take that feedback in stride. Writing groups work best when there is a strong level of care and concern for one another built in addition to a sense of purpose that focuses on the work. In the long run, it's best to remember that the golden rule applies in writing groups as well as in many other parts of life, right? Treat others as you wish to be treated. In the writing context, that means provide good feedback that's meaningful. Provide feedback that will help your colleague write a better piece. And then receive the feedback as you want your colleague to receive yours. I really do wish you all the best as you develop your skills as a reviewer and as a writer, and look for more information and resources on our NACADA Writer Support webpage.